Wow, that worked. Good evening. Oh, come on. I told our guests that there would be some massive energy in this hall tonight. Good evening. All right. Okay. You guys are making me look good. Thank you. My name is Youngmoo Kim. I'm director of the Excite Center at Drexel University. And on behalf of Drexel, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this highly anticipated edition of our Learning Innovation Conversations. And I will tell you now, we are in for a very special evening. We are privileged to have two distinguished guests tonight, so I'm going to be super brief with my learning innovation updates. If you've missed any of our previous events with renowned speakers from across the country, that's John Maida and Mimi Ito and Leah Beakley and Katrina Stevens, we invite you to catch up through our video playlist, which is online at drexel.edu/learninginnovation. Similarly, tonight's video will be posted shortly afterwards, so please share that with your friends and colleagues. And then we have one more event. November 28th, our sixth and final speaker for this series will be Dr. Melina Unkefer, director of the education program at Neuroscape, a translational neuroscience center at UCSF, where she leads a multi-university network funded by the National Science Foundation to investigate how executive function and cognitive control contributes to academic achievement in childhood. She'll tell us about her partnerships with educators throughout the country to design, implement, and assess education innovations grounded in the science of learning. So her talk is not to be missed. Again, that's November 28th. Registration for the event is open now. Now, excite.ticketleap.com. Don't wait. Run to your phones. Take them out right now. Just go to excite.ticketleap.com. You can go ahead and register for November 28th, and I hope to see all of you back here for that event. Now, as many of you know, learning innovation, or a key part of learning innovation, is our research on makerspaces. Our team has visited K-12 makerspaces across the country, and in early 2018, we are going to release a full report with our findings and recommendations. So, to be notified of the release of this report, all you need to do is sign up for updates on our Learning Innovation website. Again, drexel.edu/learninginnovation. But for those of you particularly interested in making, I wanted to let you know that our friends at Digital Promise and MakerEd are hosting an Ed Camp in just about a week on November 4th at Friends Central with a specific focus on making, maker education, and hands-on learning. Now, for those of you who don't know what Ed Camps are, they are participant-driven professional development experiences created by educators for educators. We are huge fans of all of these organizations, and I know that this is going to be a fantastic event. So please go to bit.ly/edcamp-phl for more information. Again, bit.ly/edcamp-phl for more information about that Ed Camp, which is going to be fantastic. So as we head towards our final two conversation events this year, our goal has been to move from inspiration, we've had amazing talks, amazing ideas from lots of people, to implementation. So to this end, we are forming the Learning Innovation Network as a way to share innovative approaches across different kinds of institutions and organizations to spark interest within educators and unlock potential for all students. So by being here tonight, you are helping us to build this network, but we want your help in identifying others who should be here, those maybe who haven't heard about this event or hadn't heard about this initiative. So please help us by answering the following, right? Who is an education innovator in Philadelphia more people should know about, right? I'm sure a couple of people come to mind in all of your heads when you think about education innovation, but who are those who we need to know more about, who might not be right first on the list? So as usual, we're going to follow up this event with a survey via email and Twitter. So please help us connect, and by answering the survey, please help us connect with innovators at your school, your community, your organization, or anywhere else. So if you respond to this survey, you'll then be informed of our upcoming Learning Innovation Network events to discuss and define tangible steps for implementation. So please, after this event, think about this question. You'll get the survey. Just put in a quick response. And we'd love to have those ideas from across the city and region. Some quick acknowledgements. At prior events, we've had these amazing graphic recordings. And tonight, we're privileged to have Joe Azar from Crowley & Company recording tonight's proceedings. You can watch this unfold over there in the window over there. Our thanks to reporters and editors at the Philadelphia Citizen, Technically, WHYY, and WURD for helping us reach new communities through their coverage of learning innovation. And as always, a very special thanks to our supporters for learning innovation. So please join me in thanking Jessica Berwind and her colleagues at Spring Point Partners who have made this conversation possible. So after tonight's event, we hope you'll join us for a reception in the lobby afterwards so we can continue our informal discussions. I know that there's going to be some demand for this. We will have a designated area outside for photos and selfies with Chris Emdin. But while you're waiting in line for that, you can contribute to the graphic recording by sharing your thoughts with Joe. He'll be set up out there as well. So in that line, please share your ideas about learning innovation with Joe, and then it'll be incorporated into that graphic. Please tweet about tonight's proceedings using hashtag #LearningInnovation throughout the talks, throughout the discussion. I hope to see a lot of chatter on Twitter. And then following the presentation, as usual, I'll kick things off with a couple of questions, and we will invite you to use the microphones on either side of the hall to ask your questions. And of course, you can tweet your questions as well to @ExciteCenter. But for those of you who aren't on Twitter, you can also text your questions to that number right there, 484-588-4158. Every time I say that, I feel like I'm running a telethon. But that number is there. If you want to test it out right now, please go ahead. Please don't expect a response. I won't be able to respond to all of you right now. But you can use that number, and of course, we will bring that up again during the question and answer period so that you can text your questions there. And then, of course, remember to fill out the post-event survey afterwards that you'll receive via email and Twitter. So, oops. Sorry. All right, on with the show. I am thrilled to welcome our first distinguished guest this evening, who will frame the conversation and welcome our featured speaker. Our next guest is an innovator who has focused on quality and equity in education throughout his career, serving at every level: teacher, principal, central office administrator, and superintendent. He was previously superintendent of Prince George's County Public Schools in Maryland, where his work focused on enhanced access and rigor to ensure college and career readiness. Of course, he is currently superintendent of the School District of Philadelphia, the largest school district in the Commonwealth, where he's worked tirelessly toward the goal of great schools in every neighborhood. Under his leadership, Philadelphia has expanded successful school models, launched in-district turnarounds, opened new innovative high schools, and redesigned schools in partnership with the communities. Recently named as one of the most influential people in our city by Philadelphia Magazine, please welcome Dr. William Haidt.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kim. Good evening, everybody. And I am excited to be here at the Excite Center as well. And I am really interested in Chris's talk later. And Chris, thank you for being here as well. And I'm going to introduce Chris to you shortly. And I was thinking about the mission and the Excite Center's mission. And that mission just around inspiring research and discovery by connecting technology and communities. And I think about that from the perspective of schools. And many of you have been in schools, many of you have attended schools, and unfortunately for many, the schools that our young people are experiencing today aren't very different than many of the schools that I attended in terms of their structure, their design, their operation. As a matter of fact, we still have a system that focuses on time, on days, on instructional hours, on credits. And when I think about that in the context of my grandson, and those who know me, particularly the individuals who are colleagues in Philadelphia, know that I talk about my grandson all the time. Well, he's 5, and now he has started kindergarten. And he started kindergarten this year, so really excited about him starting kindergarten. Because I was excited about him starting kindergarten because that whenever my wife and I were with him, he was very excited about his ability to problem solve, his ability to ask questions, his ability to use Siri to actually research things that we were talking about. So we had to be careful around him. And then what we found, so he enters kindergarten and everybody experiences the big day, and he gets into kindergarten, and I shared this with our principals last week in a discussion. Chris, you will recall this conversation, and it took him 3 days to get on yellow. It took 3 days, he's on yellow. And my daughter, his mom, was saying, "Dad, I don't know what to do. Tell me what I should do." And I said, well, talk to the teacher, find out what in fact you can do to support what they're trying to do at school, and find out what he's doing to just find out the makeup of the class. So how is he spending his time? Does he get to solve problems? Does he get to ask questions? Just find out those things that we actually tried to develop in this young person as he was preparing for school. So she goes in, she has a conversation with the teacher, and then she sends back a text note. You know, that's how we fax now. We just take a picture and send it. But she sent back the text note. And the note was that from her teacher that was a description of what he does. And she says, well, he finishes his assignments in 12 to 15 minutes. And then he tries to draw attention of everybody else. And he's getting up and he is trying to be funny and he is moving around trying to get the attention of other children while they're working. Well, I share that story because I do think that for too many of our young people, that is their experience. And not just in kindergarten, but unfortunately throughout their educational experience. And I think about it from the perspective of if we're still designed in a scenario, within a scenario, that is about credits, it's about instructional hours, it's about days, then we are probably not serving many of the children's or feeding many of the children's natural curiosity, natural ability around inquiry, natural ability to solve problems, and natural abilities to think critically about the work that they are trying to achieve or solve. And so as I think about that, I think about innovation and what it means. And I do think that here in Philadelphia, we're excited, at least in the school district, we're excited that we have now what is called an innovation network. Chris Lehman, thank you for your work in helping us think through how to construct that network. But here's what we found. We found that while we have named something now innovation, that we have an innovation network, so we have a desire for things to be more innovative and engaging for young people, but we have a structure that is based in an old approach. And what happens in those cases, it literally chokes the innovation out of the great ideas that individuals in these schools are having. And so we have to think about it, we collectively have to think about it just as Science Leadership has thought about it, just as some of our other schools like Building 21, the workshop school, some of these schools have thought about how do we disrupt that structure in order to provide children with what they need. And I think that's how we have to think about innovation. And I'm looking forward to Dr. Emdin's comments this evening because hopefully he'll have some sort of answer for me and for all of you. But one of the things that we're really excited about is that we're starting down this path. And this path is not going to change overnight. It's not going to change over a year, but it will change over time. And it will change as we continue to stay focused, and as Dr. Kim described, moving from being inspired to innovate to actually executing on the conditions and the environments that allow for great innovation. And so I'm excited as a part of this evening's program to introduce Dr. Chris Emdin, who is a dynamic speaker, and I know all of you are familiar and know that, who gave the opening keynote at South by Southwest Education last spring and is famous for his TED Talk, Teach Students How to Create Magic, which has been viewed over 2 million times. He is a New York Times best-selling author of the books Urban Science Education for the Hip-Hop Generation and for white folks who teach in the hood and the rest of y'all too. He is currently an associate professor in the Department of Mathematics, Science, and Technology at Teachers College, Columbia University, where, oh, by the way, he has now been 10 years. And Chris, good gracious, man, you're just getting younger and better. Right? And he serves as Director of Science Education at the Center for Health Equity and Urban Science Education. He is also the Associate Director of the Institute for Urban and Minority Education at Teachers College. He is an alumni fellow at the Hutchins Center at Harvard University and served as Minorities and Energy Ambassadors for the U.S. Department of Energy and the STEAM Ambassador for the U.S. Department of State. It is my pleasure to introduce you now to our speaker this evening, Dr. Chris Emdin.
All right. So good evening, everyone. How you guys doing? So, I've been charged to come out here and have a conversation about innovation and education. And it's a heck of a topic to delve into, but I'm going to take a stab at it. And, the only unfortunate thing about me having to have this conversation with you is that I only have 45 minutes. Please keep me on task, because I have a tendency to just go on. But in that 45 minutes, what I want to do is I want to share my take on innovation, talk about how my take on it has impacted my work, and talk a little bit about some of my research projects, and then just lay out the landscape of urban education as it relates to innovation. And I'm specifically talking about urban education because it's the place where it's become the ground zero for people testing out what they perceive to be innovative ideas, or where people believe that innovation is most necessary. And so the first thing I want to start off with, just in framing the conversation, is that we are here at the Excite Center. And the Excite Center is, a center that's focusing on, expressive and creative, interaction as its anchor. And I can't think of any more innovative or exciting phenomenon than hip hop. So whenever I give a conversation about innovation, I say you got to first look at hip hop. What has hip hop done? What is hip hop doing? How has it reimagined areas of study? And hip hop not only serves as the exemplar for my conversation around innovation, it also serves as the theoretical framework for the academic piece of the conversation I'm going to share with you. And so for me, you innovate by merging worlds that previously were not perceived to exist. You let that synergy happen, and then you study what happens when it organically comes together. And in my work, the big piece of that exemplar is in HipHopEd. So anybody here knows HipHopEd or has been a part of HipHopEd? So HipHopEd is a chat on Twitter, a couple of y'all. Some people still scared to talk. That's half the battle of innovation for the record, but we're going to go there in a little bit. HipHopEd was just saying, I believe that hip-hop and education need to have a dialogue to be able to make sense of how we transform both fields of study. And so it began with a conversation on Twitter about 7 years ago, where we're just going to Twitter chat about hip-hop and education and see what happens. And what happened was more people than myself and Brandon Frame in Connecticut somewhere thought this was a thing, right? And we got hip-hop artists, educators, teachers, professors, all thinking about these ideas in these silos. And once that happened, it emerged from being a Twitter chat to a lifestyle brand. This is also part of our conversation about innovation, meaning people now want to rock HipHopEd hats. They want to represent what HipHopEd means. And I think that's what innovation is, this idea that hip-hop sensibilities can merge with education, construct something new for hip-hop and education, but also construct a whole new area and field of study. This idea of hip-hop and education as a thing in its own, right? So that when a young person is rocking a HipHopEd hat, they're sending messages to the world about the fact that they are equally as hip-hop as they are interested in education, right? That they're constructing new fields of study. They're constructing, which is another real new piece of my work, when you let HipHopEd happen, then all of a sudden what happened was this construction of a new identity around being ratchetemic. We're going to go there in a minute, right? Right? So initially it began with bringing hip-hop to education and seeing what happened. That evolved into people feeling like, wait, hold up, I am hip-hop and education. And that evolved into people constructing new identities about who they are in the world. So to be ratchet, anybody who's hood in here knows what it means to be ratchet. At least I hope you. Who's ratchet in here? Anybody? Okay. Just for the record though, y'all all required, this is important, right? Y'all all required my endorsement of ratchet identities in academic spaces for you to be like, yes, for a minute. But that's important because when I began my talk, right, you were still like, okay, do I respond yet? These are the things that I think are at the crux of innovation. It's a requirement of the institution that holds power, the space to allow these raw organic expressions of self to have space to become valuable. All I said was ratchetemic, and all of a sudden people got real lit. Which meant that I, in this space, constructed an environment that allowed for the ratchet identity to become expressed. Then opened up the opportunity for you to say, wait, by the way, if you ratchet and you hear, you're automatically ratchetemic, right? The idea here is, because I want to really revolve around this theme of innovation, is bring two worlds that ain't been together before, bring them together. Sit back and watch it happen. When some magic happens, take that magic and celebrate it, right? And once you celebrate it and make it visible, endorse it with the power that you hold. That's how innovation takes root. So for me, it's come in my work through the form of HipHopEd. Y'all still with me? Now, just because you responded a little bit, somebody said an extra yes, thank you for the extra S's. But before, because that matters. All of this also, when it relates to education, right, it's also about the welcoming then with traditions that the new formed of thing comes from, and then going back to study those traditions. Who's still with me? So look, hip-hop meets education. HipHopEd gets formed. HipHopEd gets formed, people start expressing themselves as hip-hop and academic. They name it something, we claim the name, we re-endorse it. And then we say, hold up for a minute. If they're bringing out this new thing, we need to go find out where that thing comes from. This is important, because what we oftentimes do in the world of education is when we see this new forms bubble up, we take the new forms, don't do the work to make you understand where it comes from, and then we start doing what corporations did with hip-hop, with innovations in education. So you take this, the part of it that bubbles up, you take that, endorse it, market it, recreate it, sell it back to the folks who created it, and then it becomes an awful rendition of the original. Like, so I went to a conference the other day, and I went up in there, and I met the lady, and she's like, hey, Dr. Emdin, thanks for being here, and here's your swag. It's very interesting. Who's heard the word swag being used as like favors at events? There's a couple people. That's not what swag is. Right? Folks heard the word and said, hey, they were partying and mentioned swag. Swag must be the stuff they have, right? And now they've reimagined. So reimagine swag, what swag is, and what you need to do is go do the homework around swag to fully understand, because swag is not a thing. It's a sensibility. Right? It's a mode of engagement. Like, you can see somebody like, yo, he ain't got no swag. Like, just by virtue of them walking in, somebody got a little bop and he's like, yo, he's swagged out, right? You might perceive that to be the aesthetic. It's actually more of the sensibility, but you have to first do the homework on what emerges to find out where it's birthed from. In education, what HipHopEd and ratchetemic identities is birthed from is spaces where pedagogical moments happen that allow folks to be fully expressed. So I could end with, or I could begin with like ratchetemic and see like what it is to be ratchet, or I could understand that the most ratchetemic folks in the world exist in spaces like the black church. Right? So I got to study where it comes from. What do I mean by that? You see the lady who at the club on Saturday, at church on Sunday, real Holy Ghost-like, and then on Monday she back in the hood. So what we're learning from this is the expression of multiple identities fluidly, being celebrated in spaces successfully because that person consistently comes back to the church even though the expression of self that is Ratchet on Saturday is not celebrated in the church, it's welcomed. Y'all ain't even fully with me because y'all not. Because what I'm talking about now is the construction of new pedagogies, right? That is a function of innovation. So and for white folks, I write about church as a chapter, but I talk about the idea of a Pentecostal pedagogy as a significant component of what teachers need to utilize in engaging with new populations. Because let me tell you something. Innovation is not reinventing what Dewey said. Now, I'm not mad at Dewey, nor am I mad at Vygotsky or Piaget and them. They did what they did when they did it. But the understanding also has to come that when those folks were constructing those theories and ideas around innovative practices in education, the folks who we are worried about being educated were not supposed to be educated by law. Meaning then that the theoretical frameworks that we're drawing from to construct these new innovative practices by virtue of their existence alone is deeply problematic. So in order for us to be truly innovative, we have to draw from new traditions and study those traditions with the same fervor that we study the folks that we are using to construct their ideas about how to be innovative in contemporary education. Right? So if you're in Philly and you're educated in an urban space and you have not adopted a dream chaser's philosophy, y'all ain't even, if you've not, let me get back on stage. Because you know what? I was about to go all the way there and I got to remember where I'm at. Because, I can't be fully Ratchet. I got to get back to my academic. But if you're in Philly, and I mean this genuinely, and you have not adopted a dream chaser's approach to pedagogy, right? With the recognition of the fact that the expression of that dream chasers, Meek Mill, who don't know what I'm talking about? Anybody who does not know what I'm talking about, just raise your hands. It's okay. Let me tell you something. Here's one, and it's okay, because, again, you have to create the space for those who are not welcome. I'm trying to showcase a philosophy and concurrently demonstrate said philosophy in this talk. Look, so when I said dream chasers, what did you do? You were like, well, okay, I think I could figure out dream chasers. I'm not someone chasing dreams, right? So you didn't get the full scope of it, right? And for a moment, it's a moment of discomfort because you're not quite sure what somebody else knows, right? And I could have easily just ignored the fact that you don't know and kept going and allowed you to sit with the discomfort. And what would happen then is that the discomfort about your absence of knowledge temporarily about the nuance of a dream chaser's pedagogy or a Pentecostal pedagogy would be the lens through which you view the rest of my presentation. So now you're like, I didn't know Ratchet, I don't know dream chasers, I don't know Meek Mill, right? So you're spending I got 45 minutes, you're going to spend your next 15, 20 trying to resolve that tension. Y'all still with me? Well, what you experienced in those last 5 minutes is minuscule in comparison to the experiences of young people in urban communities when the absence of, it's not an indicator of your knowledge, right? When their rules of engagement are foreign in the space, they get so preoccupied in adhering to the norms of the space, it inhibits their ability to be able to get to the core of the content. That 2 minutes is 20 years for somebody. But when you understand a Pentecostal pedagogy, you're like, okay, boom. So, that's not my thing, but what exactly is the pastor doing to get them to keep coming back consistently and knowing their Bible scriptures every single week? Well, man, I don't know. He did say, can I get an amen? Amen. See, 4 people got it, not everybody did. He did say, can I get an amen? Amen. And guess what? Call and response is innovation in contemporary education. Not accidental, because there's a thing. Not an accidental saying, oh, they responded when I said that. Ooh, let's deconstruct that thing. You got to take a pause moment when magic happens, find out why and how it happens, endorse it, then let it rock out again. Y'all still with me? Right. Even here, right? Innovation is the welcoming of hybridity. Because look, I done said some academic stuff, nah? But I done use some colloquialism. Here's the question. Does my use of colloquial discourse mean that I am any less, I'm degreed up. You know what I mean? Check my resume. So it does not inhibit me from being able to fully express an academic thought or idea, right? Now, I have been endorsed by the institution that invited me. Y'all with me? Excite said, Dr. Emdin, come give a talk, right? And I'm like, look, I'm gonna be me. So when I came up and was me, you had, whether or not you liked it or not, you'd have to accept the fact that I'm welcome, right? That's what you want to do for young folks. You know what I mean? That's what it. Now, once you do that, I want to take y'all on this journey with me. Y'all ain't really woke like I want y'all to be woke. I'm taking y'all somewhere. Y'all still utilizing that old school approach to this thing, right? Once I get you there, right, and I endorse the joint and I make it really pop, then I can say, hey, you know that can't work everywhere, right? Right? Like it's valuable, it's accepted, it's respected, it's endorsed. Then I'm like, yo, for the record, when you enter in these spaces, now you got to learn how to flip that. You see, sometimes folks get the way I want to get, because that's the thing with innovation. Once you welcome it and you endorse it, now you got to be able to give folks the ability to transform that innovative practice into social capital, in addition to capital that works in other spaces. Because certain places are not going to let you be fully ratchet or academic, because they're going to see the expression of ratchet first and not look to see the academic. So when you endorse the ratchet, align it to academic, then you introduce pure academic so that the young folks can navigate fluidly through the world. Let me tell you something. When I'm dropping this Pentecostal pedagogy, I'm going to move y'all along. And I know you're still with me. And I know that's why I wish I had 4 hours and 50 minutes rather than 45 minutes, because it's going to take me at least 3 to get y'all comfortable enough to understand how we engage and how this impacts learning. I want y'all to get this with me. Like, I know it's under the guise of a presentation that rattles you, but I also want you to understand, I'm trying to show you what I'm telling you at the same time. Right? Let me tell you something. Respectability is the enemy of progressive pedagogy. Okay? The perception of what the rules of engagement are and allowing those rules to paralyze you is what inhibits you from growing. I'll tell you a quick story, and it's 45, and then I'm going to move on. I remember the first time I got invited to a really fancy schmancy PhD dinner. And I was being invited by folks who were really special in the world of academia. I've come to realize they're not as special as I thought. But when I got invited to the party, and I was so excited to be there, I couldn't eat all day long because I was nervous. So when we get there, and they all talking and theoretical frameworks and ideas and connections and collaborations, I was so hungry from not eating all day I couldn't talk. Literally, I'm like, where is the food? So this was going on, right? So now I'm sure I was being judged. Like, we thought Emdin was smart, but they didn't know I was hungry. So finally, we sit at the table. Now, we sit at the table spread is lovely. They bring the food out. And I'm like, finally, I can eat, be full, then partake in the intellectual discourse. But they had apparently eaten because the food came out, and nobody started eating. So now it's even worse because the food's right in front of me, and I'm like, I don't want to be the first one to eat. So this is all still going on. Y'all still with me? Then the nail on the head of the whole thing was, I was like, you know what? This is internal dialogue. While the dialogues are happening, I'm like, okay, you know what? If they don't eat, damn it, I'm going to eat. So I go to eat, and as I go to eat, I look on the table, and I realize there's 3 forks, 2 knives, a spoon at the top. Everybody got cups, but I don't know which direction, so I want to grab somebody else's cup. Y'all feel me? So now, guess what I did? Even though the food was there for the taking, the rules of engagement were so complex and unfamiliar that I would inhibit myself from partaking and showcase my knowledge and that had nothing to do with the food or whether or not I could eat. Once you eliminate these conventions, look, let me tell you about convention. Convention is, no disrespect to Stanford, I love them. I was out there a couple weeks ago, my boy Brian out there. Convention is having a techie side of the campus and a fuzzy side of the campus. Seriously, y'all think I'm playing? Unwritten rules that say, me and Young Moon was talking the other day. We got MIT, Cornell, tech folks in New York City that were brought in the city. And you know what they did? They took all them cats and put them on an island away from everybody else and expected innovation to happen. You gotta get out of convention. But moving out of convention requires an acceptance of chaos. Now, that's the part. Because remember I said respectability is the enemy of progressive pedagogy? Chaos is inherent in developing innovative practice. It's going to look like, sound like, act like things you've never seen before. Young folks in the classroom from the hood are going to be loud. They are going to exchange and diatribe with each other that you might perceive as insulting. Yeah, this is where I can't fully. So this is my man. I met him early. He's doing good work. I'm like, yo, but look at you, though, like that fro, your hairline so crooked, my G. Like, what are you doing, right? And he'd be like, well, at least I got here, right? Now, and we're going to go back and forth, right? And then when we're done, I'm going to dap him up, and we're going to celebrate together. Now, and it's going to look loud, it's going to be verbose, it's going to be crazy. Now, when you come in and don't understand that, and you're like, oh my gosh, bullying, like so. That's a thing, y'all. So what does it require? It actually requires you, when that plays out, to sit back and let that rock. Same formula. I want to hammer home this formula. Sit back and let it rock. Maybe for a second, let it slip out in the academic space. If it go left field, fix it. If it don't, let it rock out. Then be like, oh, that's how they engage. That is how they support each other in becoming more strong in a world that attacks them on a regular basis. My comfort with being able to play my boy as he plays me back allows me to build the resilience to be able to navigate a world where the cop don't like me. And the teacher that look like the cop don't like me either. But if you curtail the mode of engagement that actually activates the learning, then you lose the opportunity for innovative pedagogy. Y'all still with me? That's just the first slide. Let me move on. I'm going to run out. So this, to me, is my phrase around this thing. A cycle of dysfunction in education is rooted in an adoption of the language of innovation within a culture that fosters stagnation and fears revolution. I'm going to leave that up there, soak that in. People say they want stuff, but can't handle when they got it. We could talk innovative pedagogy all day long, but when you see it and it fights against everything you think you know, the first thing you want to do is shut it down. Look, my OG, Gloria Ladson Billings, shout out to you, OG, if you're watching or something, coined the phrase culturally relevant pedagogy. Does anybody need me to interpret what OG means, just for the record? It's not old grandma, it's, okay. Coined this phrase of culturally relevant education. Folks have taken that, culturally responsive education, Sami Alim and them really remixing it and making some sense of this powerful work. And work that was on the fringes of discourse in education now becomes central. Now, if you get a degree in education and you don't learn or know the phrase culturally relevant pedagogy, you're perceived as not of having had a formal education. Y'all see what's going on here? The adoption of a phrase because we're welcoming equity, we're welcoming innovation. So we bring the phrase. Then you intellectualize the phrase to the point where I go to a classroom and see a teacher that don't have that sauce. I'm going to tell y'all about that sauce in a minute. And I'm like, miss, we need to coach you out some practices. And they said, well, I was just trying to be culturally relevant, right? So look, if you don't understand what you're using, you actually can utilize this to justify poor practice, and that person is harder to shift than a person who didn't understand the concept at all. See, I hate having a conversation with educators who can quote me Paulo Freire. Y'all ain't even, are y'all there with me yet or not? Because they think they know. It's like that old MTV show, you think you know, but you ain't got no idea. And here's the thing, once you've adopted the language of revolution into oppressive practice, you disarm said tool, and then we can't bring anything else in new. So this is what the good doctor was talking about earlier, about stagnation in education practice. Sometimes you might have to blow the whole thing up. Are you willing to blow the whole thing? Are you willing to engage in revolution? I know it's not respectable for the professor to come in at Drexel and do an innovation, buttoned up talk and talk about the idea of revolution. But if you talk about education and you're not thinking about revolutionary work, you're not talking about education. You're talking about stagnation. You're talking about maintaining a status quo. You ain't even talking about innovation. You got to be, and when I say revolutionary, let's make a distinction. Revolutionary is not taking a new phrase to shift you from your practice. People think once they get shifted that they're doing something. You know, somebody challenges you like, ooh, challenge. But if somebody's consistently challenging you with new ideas, and you make a complete mathematical revolution, it doesn't mean you're engaging in political revolution. Some of us have, when I say mathematical, because we've calculated the process of innovation so well that we can use it. Words have multiple meanings, y'all. Pull out your phone. Everybody pull out your phone. Google the word academic. And whoever get it first, read it, just like Pentecostal pedagogy. Whoever get it first, read it. Google academic. What does it say? Anybody? Say that loud.
Relating to education and scholarship.
Somebody read it with her. 1, 2, 3. Read it with her.
Relating to education and scholarship.
Thank you very much. That's a little Pentecostal pedagogy, just a little. Relating to education and scholarship. That's definition 1. Now read me the second definition.
Not of practical relevance, but only theoretical.
Did y'all read that? Say it again, please.
Not of practical relevance, of only theoretical interest.
It's the same word. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? And the word takes on multiple meanings. You select what meaning adheres most to you, but somebody might perceive you as being about that life of definition 1 when your practice dictates definition 2. Okay. Now, revolution in the type that I'm talking about, which is necessary for innovation, is a fundamental change in power structure to give power to those who've lacked power and the removal of power from those who have it. Y'all with me? If you're thinking about education and you want to talk revolution and innovation, your first things first is to allow those who've had no voice to have voice. Who ain't got no voice? Them kids. Look, we could talk about innovative practices for them all day long. We could collaborate. I want to just join new teams. I just want to join new frameworks. I just want to, you know, all day long. But are they there at the table? You know, let me draw from the brilliant scholar Solange Knowles, who, let me drink my water. Y'all ain't even really with me today. Whose album is a title. And matter of fact, if you look through all the topics, the songs on that album, we could do a whole talk on the album songs. But the album title is A Seat at the Table. You can't innovate if you don't have the folks who are there having a conversation with you. And not only is it the people there, because here's the thing. Folks are like, well, listen, I've got cultural representation. 2 black folks, 2 white folks, 1 LGBTQ person, and done. I'm talking about the young folks in the hood. I'm talking about those who've never had power. Who's had the least power? Those who went through schools, were abused by schools, and left schools. You want to find out how to innovate? Go and find the people who you made leave, because they didn't drop out. You pushed them out. Go find the folks who you pushed out, recruit them to be a part of your consortium, and allow them to inform you on what went wrong for them on your watch. Other than that, you ain't innovating nothing, because all you're doing is continuing the cycle of dysfunction and wondering why you ain't got no answers. You want to do revolution? I mean, let's push. Bring rappers to the stage to come teach. That's what we did. I wrote Kendrick's people. I had my grad students all right here. Dear Mr. Kendrick Lamar. Y'all, I'm serious, y'all. We love your work. The students are listening to it because and it came when the kids are bumping him in the headphones and ignoring everything we saying. And that's an indictment on us because we're doing something that's not popular enough to compete. You know, you can't talk about innovation if you're focusing on the wrong problem. Right? The problem is you. You're the problem, dog. Like at the end of the, I mean, let's be frank. If you're not having results that you want, it's not the students' problem. The students are doing all the things they're supposed to be doing anyway. You know, can I just throw some shade real quick? You got Duckworth talking all day about some grit, it's now become a piece of the lexicon and every conversation around improving urban education. She ain't say it was for urban, but we knew who it was for. You know, folks drop gem, take it if it's you. So you were saying it's us. You can't teach grit to someone and say they lack grit if you don't understand the fact that by virtue of their existence, grit been born. If you in the hood and you dress fly every day, you got grit. If you got $1 in your pocket and you still look popping, you got grit. Oh. Let me just stay here. So if you base your approach to improving urban education on teaching someone grit or resilience, you're not teaching them grit. You don't teach grit, you activate grit. You don't teach resilience, you endorse existing forms of resilience. But if you ain't ready to see the forms that's expressing naturally, look, even mindfulness. I'm sorry, look, Young Moo looking at me like, Emdin, you wilding today. Look, even the concept of mindfulness, right? People are saying, well, teach young folks to be mindful of their practice. But folks don't want young folks to be mindful, because if they were mindful and aware of phenomena around them, they will be calling out your BS on a regular basis. So the kind of mindfulness that you're advocating for essentially is be mindful of whether or not you offend me. Not be mindful of the social milieu in which I'm embedded that forces me to be oppressed. So even work that calls forth religious practices has been taken and bastardized and utilized to justify the fact that these young folks are lacking things to begin with. If we gotta, look, y'all, we gotta stop. I don't know how else to make sense of this. The whole entire thing is wrong. I mean, I don't know how else to put it out here and make it, it's broke, so broke. Yo, it's so broke, folks be turning up over a 1% increase on your test scores. Let me tell you something. The whole entire approach is flawed. All of it. And the only reason we're not tapping into the approach to do it different is because it makes folks uncomfortable. That's why I named the book For White Folks Who Teach in the Hood. To keep it a buck, white folks who ain't from the hood is uncomfortable with hood expressions. It's also named White Folks Who Teach in the Hood, and the rest of y'all too. Black folks with white supremacist ideologies who've been endorsed by institutions to be happy to be the only one also reinforce same processes. The reason why we ain't getting nowhere is because folks who don't understand the culture won't let the culture in. And folks who understand the culture feel as though they have to strip out who they are to be endorsed by folks. And as we all play this silly game, folks elsewhere are actually teaching young folks to be free. I think about urban education on a consistent basis. Sometimes I lose sleep over it. We got a broken down urban public school system that is not achieving the way it should. And we got to own the fact that it ain't doing what it's supposed to do. And then parents look at that and be like, yo, this is not working for my kid. Then somebody gallops around on Mighty Horse and says, hey, I'll fix it. And then the parents are so thirsty for different that they jump on the boat of different. And they haven't even vetted what different is. They just know it's different from what they got. So they jumping from frying pan into the fire. These cats jumping with these new things. They wrap up a pretty suit around it. The kids might wear a tie every day. You want to charter up. And the charter's doubling down on poor pedagogy. And now we sitting here battling. I don't like your charter. I don't like your public. Your charter sucks. Your public sucks. And the private independent schools are letting kids free. They engage in practices that are truly innovative. The most powerful invitation I've gotten since the release of my book was an invitation to go speak at a school that was, I was like, y'all sure y'all want For White Folks Who Teach in the Hood? Because when I got there, I was like, yo, this is not the hood. I mean, I drove up to the school when we got there. I got there, the guy spoke into a little microphone thing and opened up the gate to the school compound. Y'all got a compound? I don't got a compound. My schools ain't had no compound. They open up to the compound. Y'all listening? I get in there, the limo's going through. Oh, Dr. Emdin, here's lacrosse field A, football team B. There's the science center donated by one of our parents. I was like, wow, right? I get into the space, and they didn't even invite me to talk. They said, we were reading about your research, we like the ideas, so we created a wing in our institution that explores them. I'm being serious, y'all. I was so hyped, I'm like, y'all pay me, I ain't even gotta talk? You just want me to come see it? They're like, just come see it and give us feedback. I get in there, first thing that happens, I love telling the story. I was walking down the hallway, and this little kid bumps me, boom, and keeps walking. And my first instinct, there's young kids in here, so I won't tell you what my first instinct was. Right? Professor Wool got her baby here. But the kid bumped me, and as the kid bumped me, I was like, this motherfucker just bumped me like that was my first. Because he about this tall, like mad disrespectful. And I was like, so you're inviting me to show that reality pedagogy causes rude kids? Like I couldn't understand what it was about. And my second instinct was to trip him as he went. But I'm petty like that, you know what I mean? But I practiced self-control. And I buttoned up my blazer and I said, all right. And I'm like, I'm gonna see you, kid. And I kept walking. I get into the class. There are kids on the side listening to headphones. Because I do this thing called Science Genius. If you Google it, it's popping. The kids on the side listening to music, and they were in a chemistry class, and it seemed like they were rapping to each other. Affluent kids, not a black kid in sight. They're rapping to each other, and the only thing I could, like, my first thought was like, man, these kids are, if there was a rhythm achievement gap, there was a rhythm achievement gap. But they was going for it, though. They were attempting. Because I'm like, this is not in sync, you know what I mean? But they were going for it. So the kids was over here rapping chemistry. They were doing a little Science Genius. The kids on the side were looking on an iPad and teaching each other. The kids in the front were sitting on a beanbag chair. And they were like, Dr. Emdin, this is reality pedagogy. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And me, I'm trying to be critical. I'm like, what about the kid who's running down the hallway, though? And they're like, oh, it's a chemistry class. We're teaching about moles and molarity. I gave him a definition of moles, and he didn't like the definition. So he was running excitedly out the class to his English teacher. The reason why he bumped me is he was so hyped to go talk about moles. Y'all with me? And as this played out, I was like, it should have been a feather in my cap that my work is letting kids do stuff, but it hit me dead in the chest, man. And what it struck me was, one, when I go to urban spaces to ask for reality pedagogy, they're like, where's your rubric for measuring joy? That's the first thing that got me. But the second thing that got me was the difference in that school and every urban school where we're trying to innovate in the promised zone down the block, the difference is them kids were free. It wasn't reality pedagogy, it was freedom. They were free to express themselves as they saw fit. Even if they were trying to be hip-hop and couldn't catch a beat, they were allowed to go where they needed to go to get to where we wanted or to get to where they wanted. I think about the kid in the hallway. When was the last time you saw a kid in the promise zone running down the hallway without a pass? Can we talk or not? Sometimes the pass is so big, they look like Flavor Flav Clyde. Got little kids run around looking like Flavor Flav because you're scared he won't come back to you. If the kid would leave your class and not want to come back, that's a reflection of the fact that you ain't doing nothing popping in that class. We teach young folks of color to be complicit. And here's the thing that bugs me out. It's ill enough, but we arguing over the uniform choice and the this, that, and the third. Are they issues to argue about? Yes, but they ain't even worried about none of it. Those are weapons of mass distraction. How about both them schools need to improve their pedagogy? How about, I don't like where this is going in many ways, but let's talk about allyship to construct an approach to teaching and learning across where we are to get things done. You could disagree with each other fundamentally on the philosophy of the institution, but at the end of the day, the core thing is how are we teaching? Sometimes innovation is back to the core of it. Okay. I'm sorry, my transitions is off. There are no beautiful segues here tonight. This is it, to me. It's a beautiful quote by Frantz Fanon. 10 minutes? You're lying. 10? Only 10. Let me take 11. Can I get 11? That's all good. Now I'm going to stop at 10 so we can do our thing. It's all good. Hey, is this a bid? Y'all bidding? The unpreparedness of the elite, the lack of practical ties between them and the masses, their apathy, and yes, their cowardice in the moment of the struggle is the cause for trials and tribulations for young people. At the end of the day, it really is the lack of practical ties and people being cowards. Does that hurt? We suckers, y'all. We are. We've allowed a person to be in charge of education in this country who don't have a degree in education while we tell educators they need a master's. If you're silent about that, that's cowardice. And here's the thing. We're so broken because we can't speak back to the fact that we feel like we're left out. So, you know broken people break people? You know hurt people hurt people? As a field of education, collectively, why we can't fully innovate is because we've allowed society to dictate for us what education is on the scale of value or lack of value. So you yourself been hurt. You're in an abusive relationship with the system. Y'all don't even want to talk tonight. I only got 10. I'd go all the way there. You're in an abusive. I am in a look. I'm an anthrobiochemist, undergrad, master's in natural sciences. When I went to tell my mama that I was going to go teach, I'd never seen such disappointment. Can we talk? And I had to ask I'm like, Mom, the lab is boring. They don't like me, I don't like them. But when I tutor for 30 minutes a week, I feel like the ancestors are calling my name when I leave. Y'all, and this is me. And then I have to ask myself, my mom, who's always advocated for my joy, expressed dejection when I chose to do what spoke to me. Why? Because she's allowed society to dictate to her what the value is to be an educator. We all go through it. You could say it or you could admit it or not, but I'm here to tell some truth. And because we all go through it and have not reconciled that trauma, we go into classrooms with young people and reinforce it. See, we're on France, the replication of oppression is a powerful construct. When folks who've been historically oppressed get into a position of power, the only thing they know how to do is replicate the oppression they've experienced. It's the only way they can they've reestablished their position of authority. Half the teachers in urban spaces who've not resolved the trauma of feeling as though you're less than because you chose to teach are going in there in classrooms on a power trip. Now, the power trip may work in other places, but in the hood, the power trip is not going to work because we got our own. Like, fam, I worked my whole life to be mean. And you like, well, I'm going to just control. So now you got power clash. Now, when you got power clash, let me tell you something. You're not going to win a power clash with a person who's constructed an identity about being something and someone. You're not. Look, half the system. Oh, y'all. Let me take. Yo, I don't have the stats on this. I got stuff I got stats on. I ain't got the stats on. This is just projection. Can we just talk? 90% of the suspensions I've seen of young men of color were birthed out of a situation where they went one-on-one with an educator who didn't know how to deal with it. And all of a sudden, and the thing is, we don't understand how that becomes, not only is it traumatic experience for the person who's in it, right? Because they're in it, they're experiencing it. My homies was watching, so I can't lose. So I step all the way up and I act completely out of character. It's not who I am. I be at the mosque going, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's who I am. But today, not me. So now we go back and forth. You exercise your power. You shut them down. They get out of character. They do something egregious. You call security. Security gets them out. Recommends for special ed. Special education over time gets accustomed to complicity. Before long, jail gets comfortable. You get jammed up by police. You change the whole trajectory of a person's life because of your unwillingness to wield power to those who've been powerless. And it's not just the person experiencing it in the moment. It's everybody who's witnessing the phenomena as well. Then we want to talk about innovation. What you innovating, dog? For what? For who? For you? Right? For you to be a progressive educator? For you to construct the identity that you're doing good work? Or to actually do it? I'm going to pause soon, but I just wanted to share some things. Who got the book? Wait, hold up. Time out. Who don't got the book? Look, I feel bad for you, son. You got 99 problems and teaching well is one. You better pull up that Amazon and cop that joint. Look. Thank you, sis. Appreciate that. Look, what I tried to do through the chapters in the text, and I'm going to close out here, is give you pedagogical practices rooted in the kind of innovative work that connects to having kids have voice. And it's not even that complex. I'm gonna give you the Cliff Notes version, but you gotta go buy the book to get the extended version. All right, it's like the snippet for the album. Cogenerative dialogues and ciphers. Innovative. Does not cost $1 million. Have dialogues with the students in your class, outside of class, about how they're experiencing your class. That's the thing. See, but I'm glad you said that. What she said is brilliant. I wish I could take full credit. You know where I got that from? Hip hop. When I see ciphers, and when somebody ain't got no bars, they be like, mm-mm. And when somebody does, they're like, woo! Like it's consistent, immediate feedback loop. Cipher, cogenerative dialogue. Number one. Number two, co-teach. What's co-teaching? A situation where you allow the young people to take the helm of the instruction. Whether or not they have the content expertise. They develop the content expertise as they go to teach the construct. Half of y'all don't remember what you learned in school anyway. You learn it when you're doing your lesson planning. Keep it a buck. So give the young people a concerted and deliberate approach to be able to design their own lessons and then implement said lessons. And in best case scenario, you learn from what they're doing and then utilize it in your own practice. Look, I like coming out to give speeches and keynotes. I mean, it's how I live, it works for me. But the best professional development you can ever have is based on you watching yourself teach, watching students teach, gleaning ideas from what they do and incorporating them into the next thing that you do. It's all in-house. Right, Chris? That's LA Chris. Where you at, dog? In-house. You don't need nobody. You might get somebody in just for a little punch, but consistent revision of our own practice and work. And so co-teaching, I'm gonna connect back to there's 7 C's. I get that, 7 C's? The seventh one, I'm gonna jump the second to the seventh, curation. Curation is simply, look, no teacher gets better at their craft unless they see themselves teaching. Everybody record yourself teaching. You don't gotta live stream it to Dr. Height. Like, I know he cares, but he don't really care. Have a child record you as you teach. Get your videotape back before they leave so you don't end up on YouTube. Create consistent 2-minute vignettes of yourself in practice. On the weekend, study yourself. Come back on Monday and be more lit. Basketball players, football coaches, sometimes they spend more time watching tape than they do actually practicing. Do y'all know that? Are you not the LeBron James, Kobe Bryant of your classroom? Or if you're not there, don't you want to be? That's the innovation to me. I mean, I had some other joints in there. I'm going to stop with this one. It's not even one of the C's, it's a little addendum so you can read the rest. I got you a little appetizer. Clean. Everybody say clean. You see, this is Urban Education 101. Young people who come from spaces where the environment is lacking in aesthetics and beauty and all the things that we all love to be around have only one vehicle to be able to surround themselves with the same phenomenon, and that vehicle is themselves. So if my life experience is broken, I want to rock something fly so I could feel like something. Educators miss this completely. The value of aesthetic and physical representation for folks who've lacked. It is at the core and crux of their identity. If you step on my new J's since Morris Blackman till 2017, same response. And if you don't value that, you miss how to connect to them. Something simple like, bruh, I see how that fitted matching them sneakers. You're doing it right now. And walk away. Who's with me, man? That matters. Another thing too, when you, and I'm not style police, you might have your own swag, but when you come to teach a young person whose identity is wrapped around their physical representation, and you come in there every day looking trash, and you are the single representation of what it means to be college educated. Hold on to this. Can you rock with me? You're like, go to school, stay in school, and you come in there looking like you ain't worth nothing. I'm like, stay in school to look like you? Nah, I'm good. because we don't understand what that means. Now, don't dress like them, but dress like something. Look, if you was going somewhere where it mattered to you, you would show that off. And if it's who I am and your currency doesn't signal that, then there's a signal cross, right? I'm not keep saying I'm gonna stop here. I promise. I promise. The last piece of it to me, and y'all can get the C's later, is if you want, I'm not talking about being innovative. You want to construct innovation. You have to pour life. This is sometimes a little left field when I go here, but you got to be willing to pour life into the young person to the point where they believe what it is that you want them to get to. And this is our grad schools of education are not talking about this. But this is it. You got to make folks, you got to walk into school and be like, what up, my physics phenom, mathematical genius, super scholar. You might have to use some words they don't understand yet. See, when society consistently delivers a message to you about who you are, verbally or non-verbally, when Big said, I'd like to dedicate this album to all the teachers who told me I wouldn't amount to nothing. That's a signal, y'all. My first song, my first album, the only person I want to shout out to is the teachers who told me I wouldn't amount to nothing. Now, the teacher might not have said, hey, Big, you're not going to amount to nothing. But your practices indicate, I'm a product of the PJs. My teacher always told me I grew up to be a reject. Folks is telling you what you're telling them without saying it. So if that's the message I'm receiving, an anchor of constructing innovative practices is to pour back the opposite of what they're receiving. Shoot, you might have to pour that into yourself. When you're going in to teach every day, you might have to I'll tell you the truth. Before I come out to give a talk, I was in the hotel room for a guy, I went in that mirror, I said, Dr. Emdin, you black intellectual giant, you. Better go out there and give them the business, right? You call for us the ancestors, you do that work. You do what you're supposed to do. Don't mince words. I'm like, but I don't know, it's drugs. Don't mince words. You get them that work. Then I walk out that hotel like, woo, y'all about to get that work. Look, sometimes as an educator, you've got to take the moments to pour life into yourself to construct the educated identity you want to be. Then when you walk out on cloud 9 and you go out there and you pour that into them kids, y'all meet each other when you're vibrating on frequencies of excellence, that's teaching and learning. That's innovation. That is the work. Thank you. Thank y'all. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
All right. No, stay up here. Stay up here. All right, somehow we have to stay up here and keep talking a little bit. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Very good.
And if we had a mic, we would just drop. But sorry, you got to stay up with me here, Chris. Okay, we do have microphones. We don't have that much time. We'll try to squeeze in some questions. There are microphones on either side. You can text, right? I hope we can put the slide back up there with the number where, they got it. They're supposed to have it back there, but there it is. Thank you. Thank you. So you can text questions to that number that is up there as well. I need a drink.
Yeah.
I'm just going to try to kick this off, and I'm going to let you talk some more, because that's what we really want to hear. You brought up this issue in so many of the things you talked about, kind of authenticity and lack of authenticity, right? In different environments. Whether the school, a school who might read your book and try to implement some things, but kind of scratch the surface.
Right.
Or a teacher who comes into a classroom, tries to connect, but doesn't really understand how to do that. Can you provide some guidance or some thoughts about authenticity in learning?
Well, The thing about authenticity is that that's the common currency. You know what I mean? So you don't have to be like someone. You just have to bring your authentic self. Like, so when we talk about Ratchetdemic, right? They're very urban-specific Ratchet identities. They're also very Appalachian, rural, poor Ratchet identities as well. And so, you know, everybody's running around trying to be something they're not. Most people in this room are nothing like who they pretend to be. The ideology that we all aspire to is one that doesn't exist. So if everybody brought their full authentic self, look, young people they could smell authenticity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's really about this idea of being you, doing you, and then matching that with consistency. So, you know, folks always, Dr. Emdin, I tried to do co-teaching after I heard you talk, and when I went in and I had the kids teach, it didn't work. And I'm like, so how much did you try it? I did it that one time, it didn't work. Well, that's because they're accustomed to you sucking. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, genuinely, you know, every consistent pattern action becomes a ritual. You know that, right? Every consistent pattern action becomes ritual. Once ritual has been enacted over time in classrooms, young folks acclimate to the kind of self that you present to them. So they're normalized to engaging in practices that are oppressive. You know, you could go to a school and be like, hey, y'all, that kid came in late. What do you think we should do about it? And the kids would be like, kick him out, suspend him. And you'd be like, yo, I thought that was your homie. The reason why they respond that way is because they've developed a ritual of seeing themselves and people like them as being disposable. So the immediate reaction to something that's emancipatory is to reject it. It's like, you ever have a homie that came home from jail? I'm sorry, this might be a bad example, but when you have a homie that came home from jail and you go out to eat and they like this the whole time, and I'm like, bruh, nobody's gonna take your food. It's not because they don't know they could eat. It's because they've developed a ritual around needing to do that. That even in a space where they're free, they've developed. So young folks are so accustomed to this pedagogy of poverty and pedagogy of oppression that it takes consistent pattern action and counter practices to negate existing poor practices. So I'm like, you gotta try something at least 3 times to develop a new ritual. So let them co-teach at least 3 times. So wait, nah, this is weird. Nah, I don't understand. Wait, he doing it twice? Wait, he did it. Yo, this might be how it is in here. Then who feels me? They recalibrate themselves to spaces where they need to be themselves. But you can't try innovation once and be like, oh, innovation sucks, I'm done, right? You gotta see it through. And that's the hard part, right? When people are scared of what it is to see it through.
Yeah.
Or people are uncomfortable with seeing it through. Yeah.
So it brings up another great point. I mean, you alluded to this multiple times in your remarks. I mean, this notion of innovation, right? We get dazzled by the flashy new thing, right? The new product, the new tech, whatever. But innovation isn't just that, right? Or isn't even that necessarily, right? Innovation takes many, many forms.
Yeah.
How many times? Let's see. How do I formulate this question? I mean, you talked about this, let's say in your South by Southwest talk, right? That, about not trying to tech away some of our problems. I mean, so much of the discussion, especially around education and innovation, is around, hey, here's this new tech, right? And I mean, give it to you, give it to me, give it to pretty much anyone in this room, and we roll our eyes. Oh yeah, that's not going to work. Why does the discussion always go there?
Look, the thing is that people think that because it's new, it's better. And that is the opposite of what we know, right? So, it's like, oh, it's a new device. Give it to all the kids. I'm like, wait, I hate to throw shade on my own school district. Like in New York, we have a Computer Science for All initiative, which is an amazing initiative. Like, who doesn't want every kid to do computer science, right? It sounds great, but 2% of the teachers know how to do anything. Like, half them cats can't open email. So how am I going to, you know what I'm saying? So you might have to take a step back and till the soil before jumping out the window. And again, it's the tilling the soil is a slow process. It's an ugly process. And we have to learn to be comfortable with discomfort, right? It's like, I got to the point in my life and my work and my existence, like, it's just I know it's going to be uncomfortable. So I've learned to acclimate to being comfortable with discomfort. And we have to learn to be comfortable with the fact that things don't work the way they're supposed to. Also, some old school stuff still works. And this is scary to, folks who want to talk about innovation. And like when I talk about the C's of coordinative dialogue, you don't need stuff to do it. You need people and willingness, right? And it's I remember, I'm not trying not to talk too much, I've been talking all day, but I remember once I was asked to go to talk to this the school district about ways to transform their practice through this huge grant they got. And everybody was like, oh, and I told them all this stuff. Then they were like, oh, you know what? There's a digital divide. Give all the kids iPads. And I was like, wait a minute, right? And then they gave the kids the iPads, right? And guess what happened? And the laptops. They were breaking them. Like, you ever have a laptop cart in your school and the kids start taking all the keys off the laptop cart? Who's the educator in here? Just so I know who's really about that life or not. Okay, you ever give the kids the device and you be like, yo, why are they ripping the keys off the laptop? Like, aren't they appreciative of the tech tools we're giving them? Because you gave them new tools, but you're doing old stuff. So the new tools makes no difference because, look, anybody can word process. I'm giving you a brand new Chromebook, and I'm like, word process. I've been doing that since I was 2. So now, the only thing I could do that's innovative enough is break the thing and see if it works good. But then you blame the young folks for how they respond to the use of the tool because you never did the work of being innovative in the tool. And so this backwards thinking is what's the flaw of how we move forward. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. Sometimes you got to prepare for the stuff before you do the stuff. I've been doing Science Genius for 7 years. So Science Genius is this thing in New York where we have the kids rap about science content. And then the homie Jizza joined me on it. The kids rap. Then we do a science rap battle. It's a big auditorium. And it's literally like smack. Except, anybody know what smack is? It's like smack except around STEM, and the kids love it. And we're like, Dr. Emdin, why aren't you writing a paper on this yet? Like, and I'm like, because it takes time to do good research, right? I could put it out. I could write a really quick, pithy piece, and it's popping. But if I want folks to really understand the work, I've got to first understand my work. When I understand all that's going on and I'm fully out, don't worry, the paper's gonna come. But I gotta do the work first. The real work is slow. The real work is ugly. The real work is laborious. But I'd rather do that work first than unleash science genius on the planet. Right? Then here's science genius, then people start messing it up. Then be like, oh, this thing ain't working. Right? Yeah. It requires the tilling work first.
Okay, we've got a couple of people waiting to ask questions. So how about over here?
Hi. I am an educator in Philadelphia, and I just want to make a couple comments and see what you think. So this morning I was in a grade group meeting for an hour where I was told I had to make up a schedule according to what my administrator felt we should be doing in math for the hour. So it was spelled out, step by step, how many minutes I was to spend on each part of my math, hour. And I wonder, where this innovation fits in with this, and I wish Dr. Haidt was here to hear my comments because I was very upset at the fact that I was told I would be observed when that starting Monday I better be following this schedule, and just wondered what you thought about that first, and second, the fact that we still assess students the way we did 30 years ago. So that's, all about, those percentage increases that, we just heard about in our emails from Dr. Haidt. So, it's very frustrating to hear all this, and I just wondered what you thought. Thank you.
I hope my reaction said a lot. Listen, we know that you can't hyperstructure good teaching. I think what's happened is, and this is the thing with people in this world, like even I go through this all the time, y'all. Like I have folks who be like, oh, Dr. Emdin, progressive educator, I love him, da-da-da-da. Then I'll say something, they'll be like, oh, he's anti, like people are always consistently trying to put folks in camps. I'm like, I don't rock with none of y'all, like, and I'm okay with that. So, there's like, that's our guy, no, he's our guy. I'm like, I'm none of y'all guy, y'all all trash. Like, so, and I think what happens is just that, right? So I think what happens oftentimes is that we know that a hyperstructured teaching and learning, it stifles the creativity of the educator, which stifles the creativity of the students and inhibits good learning. But I think what happens is a lot of cats think that you could teach and freestyle. You know what I mean? And it's like, bruh, you can't just go in there and do whatever. So in response to folks who just be like, I'm gonna just wing it, then people get hyper-structured, and people don't understand that there has to be a merging of the two. So my talk today, Young will tell you, how many slides did I have when we was going over the slides? The first one,
yeah.
the first deck I had.
Oh, yeah, like 60?
Okay.
60?
At least I have more than 60 slides, but I used 3, maybe 4. Y'all understand what I'm saying or not? If I came in here like, I don't need to, because my slides helped me think. It helped me structure. It helped me remember what I wanted to hit. You see what I'm saying? Then I could put them in value till the last second. What was I doing?
Oh, just cutting.
I was
reorganizing, cutting.
I was
changing,
juggling
editing.
my slides
Yeah.
till the last second before y'all walked in here, and I ain't even used up to a third of them. I'm trying to make a point. My point is, I needed to do the deliberate, laborious work of thinking through my thoughts in a constructive fashion first, so that I could come up here and flow. So I hope I'm answering your question. You can't just flow, but we all know how trash my talk will be. Like, well, now slide forward. It wouldn't have worked. And there has to be a merging of the two, and educators have to be able to confront each other about where do we structure but still allow ourselves to be able to go. It's like every good everything comes back to hip hop. Every good hip hop artist, when they freestyle, it really does. Everything comes back to hip hop. You ever heard of dope freestyle artists? Not like a written freestyle artist, like a freestyle artist. Like just going off the top. Even your favorite freestyle artists got their go-to bars. Y'all feel me or not? Like they could be going off the top, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, party. My man got the t-shirts of black about the party. This is how we do. Hanging on, kicking it with my homie Young Moo. You gotta give me a pound, right? Oh. So, but you got to. But in the process of that, when I run out of bars, I'm like, yeah, and it don't stop. You know, Dr. Ennis stay on the beat like cops. I wrote that, but I need to. Okay, I need my written so I can freestyle good. If you just gonna freestyle all day, you ain't got no anchor, you lost. And I think they respond to those polar opposites, and polar opposites don't work, right? And then I forgot her second question. The first one was about structure. The second one was about
Assessment.
Yeah. You know, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
That goes without saying. And the thing about assessment also, you know, that I want to just make the point about is, sometimes we actually do accept other forms of expression and celebrate it, but we don't endorse it. So the kid comes in and does the poem about, you know, biochemistry. You're like, amazing, amazing, but you ain't getting no points. You ain't got no, and so what that does is you show them that that form has no value. So when you, just by what you value, you ain't going to work if you ain't getting paid. Like, you just care for the love. I mean, that's great, but you need your check. They need the affirmation through the endorsement. And I think more robust forms of assessment are necessary, obviously, but if you only have a unitary form of assessment with complex knowledges, it don't work. This is my issue with Gardner. I feel like I'm throwing shade at all the old school cats. I mean, but you know, the idea of multiple intelligences makes so much sense. But how you do it, though? How do you construct assessments that align to it, though? You know, that becomes the question. So how do we take amazing ideas and then do the work? Becomes the question. But unitary forms of assessment are problematic, especially for young folks of color. I mean, I don't want to make these generalizations, but, you know, look. Black folks write dope when we write. It is what we just excellent in all things. But you got to also understand, for a population who historically has been legally barred from being able to read or write by law, you develop skill sets other than the written form to be able to translate information. So this is why we value the griot. This is why you value the storyteller. That's why you know what your great-great-great-grandmother did, even though she couldn't write down a story in a memoir. Your mama told you, like they told each other. So we've developed a skill set to be able to be strengthened on the verbal skill set. This is why rappers are so skilled. They are the ancestors of the griot and the storyteller. So if I've mastered the art of translating information through speech, and the only form of assessment is through written.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If I assess those who've done well on written through speech, they would fail too. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's an issue of understanding that we need complex ways to measure knowledge so that we can really truly understand where folks lie. And then you can, and here's my whole thing, like in the book I write about it, like the whole code switch phenomenon is like, once I'm like, yo, you got 100 for telling me that process so nice, but you got a 40 in how you wrote it, so that averages out to a 60. You might want to, you know what I mean? I know you got the hustle. When you hustle hard and do the other part, you already got the 100. See, if you start off with the 100 around content, not frivolously, then I feel like, oh, I could do this subject thing. I'm going to put in the extra work because the work is light anyway to do the other part. Here's the thing about work. We work, dog. You know, I love giving this example. A sister with braids spends 4 to 6 hours putting the braids in. If they legit braids. Some folks skip the edges, you know what I mean? But you put in time. And you put in time and endure pain. Because them braids be tight. Then after the 6 hours, you got a week where they still hurt. Then if you're projecting out the possibility of a perm, once it starts to itch, you can't scratch it. So you got to beat yourself in the head to go through the process. Rock with me for a little bit. I'm taking you somewhere. And then I go through all that self-torture because at the end, I have a vision of what the end looks like and it has worth. I'm like, yo, I'm going to go through them 6 hours plus that week because when I walk down the street, though, they're going to see, you know what I mean? Like, so I have a vision of what the feeling is like to have new braids walking down the street looking good. Yeah. So because of that, I'm willing to put in the work to get the outcome because I have a vision of the outcome and it has worth for me. In schools, there's no vision of an appropriate outcome. Right? There's no image, there's no feeling of what it'll feel like at the end to be that lit. Because I've not introduced that over the course of it. So I'm not going to endure nothing because I can't see the end result. And you've not endorsed the end result. But if I create a vision what it looks like consistently to do that performance around content, and I make you feel the feeling of what it looks like, how lit it is to graduate and be on top, like I make you feel that now I have something to project towards. So then the work is light. Look, homework for 2 hours has nothing on braids for 6. Right? It's the inability for us to recognize how we take what happens in these non-academic spaces and construct visions for pedagogy based on them. That's innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as always, we're running out of time, but we have a tradition with our learning innovation conversations. We finish up every question and answer session with a lightning round. But I'm going to do it a little different because all these people are lined up here, and I'm sure they have great questions as well. So the goal of the lightning round is to get through as many questions as possible with as succinct answers as possible.
I talk, dog. I got you. I'm working on it.
All right. So, but I'm going to need, the people who are lined up to ask questions to help me on this. So we're going to bounce back and forth, and we're going to go try to get some of these text questions in. All right. We don't have a clock, but hey, put 60 seconds on the clock or whatever. All right. So let's start over here. Please ask your questions as quickly as possible, and we'll get answers as quickly as possible. So let's go here.
Dr. Emdin, it was great listening to you. My question is, so I'm a first-year doc student at Penn, and one of the biggest issues that I see within our school is the fact that we're in the city of Philadelphia, but we're not in the city of Philadelphia. And for the majority of it, like people that come to the institution are very insular, but they don't actually go out and impact the outer skirts of the community. We know that there's a lot of educational issues that are going on in this community that a school like Penn could help in a vast majority of ways. So in your professional opinion, what would you say would be the best way in bridging that gap?
Go to the hood. No, genuinely. I think sometimes we have to provide the models for the institutions. Yep. Right? And make sure that gets visible. So if you go to the places they won't go, and then you showcase what that is, you provide an exemplar for them. And there's a lot more. You know what? If y'all got questions where I can't do it, just tweet me. Y'all got my handle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just tweet
Chris
me.
Emdin.
Yeah, tweet me, and I'll give you more in-depth. But my whole thing is maybe you construct the vision for them. You lead them by what you do, and then showcase it, right? And then also, I think a social media presence matters. So you could be the doc student at Penn, no disrespect to Penn, who's actually doing the work. You might get visibility around that calls attention to it, that signals to them what they should be doing. So sometimes we got to lead, not follow, you know what I mean?
Awesome. Okay, like 15 seconds per question. Here we go,
Oh God,
over there.
I'm made of questions. All right, the fear. Talk about the fear. The fear of kids failing in the future. You're talking about the private schools, the kids who have the things to look forward to, the hood kids, maybe not so much. Talk about the fear of the educators going into the hood and maybe not being accepted because of their whiteness. Fear of hiring kids from the hood, even though they study STEM.
Yeah. I think fear is a real thing, and I think the only way to fight fear is courage. Right? And some folks got to stand in the gap and be willing to put themselves on the line. And just to say real quick, if I shared with you the amount of hate mail I get, you would shudder. And I'm not even saying anything crazy. At least I don't think it is. But I got to wake up every day and look in the mirror and say, why are you on this planet? Right? And have the courage to keep saying what I believe in. And I think the biggest way to eliminate a fear is to have the courage to look it in the face.
Right here. Go.
In discussing how blackness is taught, the media has a very particular idea of what a black body looks like and should do and should be presented as, often a very visceral and, if anything, dead thing. So how do you as an educator teach blackness, teach the people that see these images in the news that a body in the street is not the only thing that they are? How do you teach blackness to people?
Why you asked that in a lightning round, dog?
I tried to get
You didn't know.
I tried. I'm sorry.
I don't think you teach blackness. I think you express it. I think that the chief mechanism that I've been able to utilize to be able to showcase who I am is that blackness is not monolithic, and that it evolves in multiple spaces and in multiple ways. You catch me right here in the middle of a talk, the spirit talk, and I'm lit. You catch me at dinner. I'm laid back, chilling, trying to scope the scene out. You catch me in a cipher, I got bars. I think we all have multiple forms of expression, right? And I think our willingness to showcase all our full selves in a full spectrum is the only way to fully demonstrate to those who don't know what blackness is, what it should be and what it could be. And there's so much more I could say, but I hope that helped a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a brilliant question, bro.
All right. Over there, 15 seconds.
You say on innovation, you don't need stuff, you need people, you need willingness. I'm a student teacher. We have a whole bunch of student teachers over here. We're all about to go into these new schools and all these new areas, and there's going to be lots of fear. There are going to be people who are tired and they aren't willing.
Yeah.
How do we get them willing?
Yeah. So one thing I would say to y'all is, I don't know if you guys know about, when I opened up with HipHopEd, hashtag HipHopEd, HIPHOPED. And what HipHopEd has been for me and for new teachers is a consort. Matter of fact, tonight at 9 o'clock, we have a chat on HipHopEd. So every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, we have a convening of literally teachers, educators, parents, whatever, and we all just pick a topic and talk about it. And what HipHopEd has done is that we've created community. So when you're fearful and you're out there, you need a squad. Don't ever go solo. Go with a team. And HipHopEd allows folks who have the sensibility to have a squad to rep for them. So you can be like, yo, what do I say to this person? What do I do? I tell cats all the time, don't come for me. Don't do it. You can send your little emails, but don't actually try to come for me because my team will be at your neck, right? And the fact, my boldness sometimes comes with the fact that I know I got people who believe in what I believe in, who has my back. And sometimes when you got a squad, you want to go fast, go by yourself. You want to go far and deep, you go with a squad. So as a student teacher, construct a squad who believes in this with you. And you support each other and you push each other.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 more, really quick.
Yes, really fast. Okay, I'm not a formal educator, but I work with Penn Center, which is building relationships between Ivy League and the urban inner city schools. So I'm there all day, but I'm not teaching them. We bring programming and resources. My question is, what's the best way to approach administration to implement some of these innovative techniques? Because we have the school I work at, they keep them in the lunchroom all day. When it's lunchtime, they're not allowed to leave. They can only stay. They can't even go to the library to do work or talk to us. They can only stay in this room. So how can we approach them to do these innovative techniques?
I really wish I had all day with y'all. I really, really do. All I want to, you open up talking so fast. Y'all remember the Cosby Show? Homegirl that was talking mad fast? When you open up, you just like her. But, I always say, and this is on the record, but off the record, the chief mechanism that I've been able to use to justify practice we know is right to do is to use the language and discourse of power to justify revolutionary work. So sometimes you might want to be like, just for the record, there's research that indicates that young folks who sit in the same seat all day long, and show them the article. Because sometimes when we say it ourselves, folks don't listen. So sometimes you have to be able to utilize the language they will listen to justify the work. Half the things that they're quoting and citing, they're citing wrong anyway. So So sometimes you got to be able to find folks in the world to support your argument so it's not like an empty argument. Because common sense will say don't keep kids in the cafeteria all day. I get this kind of stuff all the time. I want just to make the point. Do y'all understand that she's talking about a school in 2017 with black and brown babies sitting in the cafeteria all day long? Do you understand how crazy this is? And it's like, that's the world we live in. So find their own methods to justify what you know is right to do. It's the easy way. And then let's build, because there's a lot more to talk about than that for that. Because that's a civil rights issue.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
All right, 2 more quick ones right here.
Your discussion was geared at non-urban foreigners coming in to teach urban students. Can you give some insight on what actual urban teacher community is now? And then also, if that is small, would it be part of the solution to get more urban students into education?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. I did a little radio thing, and I was like, part of it also is there's no representation. So I think, we have an issue of folks who are not aware of the culture. Then you have young folks who don't see teaching as something they'd like to or even want to do. Not even education, teaching, right? And we know historically for folks of color, we've reached the heights of our successes when we've had people who speak to the classroom and people that speak to the soul. As a community, teachers and preachers have been an anchor to the community. When you move folks out of those domains, then you lose the spiritual connection, and you lose the pedagogical connection, and then you lose the entire generation. So I think one of the things that we have to do is representation. Like NYC Men Teach is a new initiative in New York. I know Philly has something aligned as well, where you have these gentlemen doing, can y'all stand up? These cats right here?
These guys.
Doing amazing work around representation. So I think representation matters. Recruiting students to teach from when they're in high school and junior high school and seen as a profession to follow matters. I think what I said about HipHopEd, about building communities of educators who are like-minded, who are always engaging matters as well. I think a urban education workforce, it just looks like folks who speak to each other. And, one of the biggest mechanisms through which folks disallow folks from doing what they was right to do is by isolating them. So you feel like you're the only one. When you feel like the only one, you lose steam. So it's about forging connections as a way forward. Hashtag HipHopEd. Join the movement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then just to add, Sharif and Vince here are from the Fellowship for Black Male Educators. They had an amazing national community. Sorry, tell me again, Sharif.
Black Male Educators for Social Justice.
Social Justice.
Yeah.
My apologies. They had an amazing national convening about a week ago and are doing amazing work. Please check it out online. All right. Last question. Sorry, this has to be the last question.
Okay. So my sister is a elementary school music teacher up in Jersey, and she recently brought a cultural event or a current event into the classroom and used it to further build her lesson about how we handle anger and how we build it into something positive instead of destructive. And that's what she used this event for. And then the parents started fighting against that, saying you should be using current events in the classroom, and she did it very tastefully. And then the board and her principal said, yeah, you can't do that anymore.
Right.
So now she's worried about how much can she bring in culturally and current event wise. And what would you say, how far can she go against this really?
One thing I've always found, and it's unfortunate that's the case, and I wish I had more time to just delve really deeply, but one thing I've always found is if the first interaction with the parent is around that or something negative, they will fight it. If they understand from the beginning that you have their child's best interest at heart, they will trust that you're going to do the right thing. And the ways to avert that is by community connection from the beginning. The same folks who are fighting against what she did would be fighting to make sure she keeps her job if they was rocking with her early. Right? And so it's like, I always tell cats, don't jump out the window till you know who your allies are. Right? And form allies with parents first before everything. Again, it's the tilling the soil part. Your first phone call home should not be open school night. Your first phone call home should not be when somebody does something wrong. Your first 4 phone calls home should be around the fact that your child is amazing and awesome and I care so much about them. Because in that instance, they will trust you to do what might be perceived to be more provocative. And otherwise, you're perceived intrinsically as being the enemy because they're expecting you to do something wrong to begin with because it's an antagonistic relationship. And I think there's strategies to be able to sort of figure it out from now on. But the beautiful thing about teaching is there's always a restart button. You know what I mean? You could screw up all September. Starting Monday, you reach out first, you write an apology, you say this is what I was trying to do, you explain it out, you keep it safe, you get them on your side, they rocking with you, then do the work. You got to be strategic.
Awesome, thank you.
No worries.
All right, we are going to have to stop it there. Hold on one sec. All right, at some point, we're going to have to go over this lightning round concept. All right, we're going to have to see some remedial work.
I
on
didn't
that.
help, I'm sorry.
No, it was great. Please join us afterwards. There's a reception out there. We're going to have the selfie area set up. Please stay around, discuss. One more hand for Dr. Chris Emdin.
Appreciate that. Good luck. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.